evening, church family. I hope and pray that you're all doing well, and that during these troublesome times with health issues, economic issues, or just sanity issues, I know everyone's probably going a little stir crazy, being cooped up in their houses a little bit more, so I know that can be trying. But I do pray that you're all doing well. Record this video tonight. I do wish that that I could be bringing this lesson to you in person and be able to see all y'all's smiling faces and be able to shake hands and get hugs and all those good things afterwards. But just know and pray that know that I pray and long for when that time to come to us soon, when that's more feasible, and us be able to assemble together and worship again. Tonight we're going to be talking about Clay did an excellent job, or about our youth group Bible study has been able to take place through a Zoom chat. We've been able to continue to do Sunday Bible study and a Wednesday Bible study, and Clay brought an excellent lesson from Hebrews chapter 5 verses 12 through 14, and continuing on in chapter 6 was verses 1 through 12. And the topic is progress. And a lot of times we lack progress when it comes in the form of making life easier for us, whether that be just look throughout history, kind of weapons, agriculture, healthcare advancements, things that make it easier. Right now we're using technology to still be able to worship in some way, and still be able to get messages of encouragement out there in some way. But a lot of times we don't like growth and progress when it comes in the form of self-evaluation. We don't like having to challenge ourselves sometimes to, well, are we actually meeting this standard that we would like to live up to? And there are things about me that could improve and could grow, because we don't like to admit fault in that way a lot of times. If we look in Hebrews 5, verses 12 through 14, we see that the Hebrew writer writes, "For though by this time you ought to be teachers, you need someone to teach you again the basic principles of the oracles of God. You need milk, not solid food." So we see that there is a need for teachers, as we see throughout the New Testament. Teachers, whether it be any kind of skill, cooking, farming, geometry, algebra, shooting a basketball, hitting a baseball, we have teachers for these things. Someone taught us these things, the initial skill, and maybe we developed it afterwards on our own. But we had initial teachers to teach us these things. So we know that this is an important thing to keep the gospel going. We need teachers to be able to teach new Christians. We see that you need milk when you're starting out. You have to be able to give them the milk at first. Just as an infant, they don't have the teeth for this solid food. We have to start with the basics. We have to start with the fundamentals. With just like anything, you need to be able to know, well, 2 + 2 = 4 before you can do any kind of upper level algebra. You have to start with those fundamentals and build up. The Hebrew writer goes on, "For everyone who lives on milk is unskilled in the word of righteousness." And this unskilled is not a slandering word at all. It is just stating you are a beginner, since he is a child. We don't expect children to be able to be as skilled as adults in certain things. But solid food is for the mature, for those who have their powers of discernment trained by constant practice to distinguish good from evil. And this is the important thing that we're going to talk about tonight, is when you're starting out, you have these certain things that you want to master. This is the point you want to get to, though, is have that discernment, to be able to discern what is right and what is wrong, because not everything is going to be a question on a quiz. And when it comes to our spirituality, we're going to be out in the world, we're going to have to making decisions every moment, discernment. And constant practice, we're going to talk about that as well. If we continue in verses 1 and 2, therefore let us leave the elementary doctrine of Christ and go on to maturity, not laying again a foundation of repentance from dead works and of faith toward God, and of instruction about washings, the laying on of hands, the resurrection of the dead, and eternal judgment. So these things that are being stated in verse 2 and 1, they're not things that aren't important. They're things, though, that we cannot dwell on only and dwell on forever and debate forever. They are things that we need to understand and then move on to new things. If you're learning how to play a sport, if say basketball is the one that I know the most about, if you are shooting a basketball and you're really good at it, and that's the only skill you're really good at, though, you can't dribble, can't play defense, you can't score in the post, you can't make a layup over anyone, and you don't work on any of those things. You only ever work on shooting, which you're already really good at. To a certain point, you're only going to be able to become a better shooter to a certain degree. You're only going to get so much better, and you're not going to become better overall because you're not getting better overall. I really want to become a better cook recently. I cook the same things, though. If I don't branch out, I'm not going to become better. Just like with our spiritual lives, if we dwell on the same things and don't challenge ourselves, if we don't continue to challenge ourselves, we're not going to become better, because through that challenge of deeper study, deeper prayer with our God, and actually enacting and doing works out in the world and living our faith for the world to see and the glory to be to our God, without that challenging of ourselves, we're not going to actually grow. We're going to stay the same. And, we can't, if you become stagnant, you won't grow, and you're getting worse. In verses 6 through 8, and then have fallen away to restore them again to repentance, since they are crucifying once again the Son of God to their own harm, and holding him up to contempt for land that has drunk the rain that often falls on it and produces a crop useful to those for whose sake it is cultivated, receives a blessing from God. But if it bears thorns and thistles, it is worthless and near to being cursed, and its end is to be burned. We have to improve. We need to improve, and we need to do those things. That's why we have Bible studies. That's why we have each other to learn from. And that's why God has given us the wisdom to be able to study his scriptures that he also gave us to become closer. And he gives us the avenue of prayer to become closer, to have those questions answered for us, and to have that discernment. So I know these times can be really trying, but through these things we have to make, throughout our lives and our spiritual journeys, we have to make decisions, and we have to be able to cling closer to God, and we have to get that discernment. We have to grow. So I pray that all of you will continue